Great, how about you?
Good, good.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
We're moving you around.
Yeah, that's really not a funny question. No, it's good. I've got more balls in the air than I can ever juggle.
Good morning. We will go ahead and call to order our MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for May 5th, 2022. Item number 2 on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the April 7th, 2022 MAPS Citizens Advisory Board meeting. They're in your packet. Hope you've had a chance to review. And so I'd take a motion in a second. Any discussion? Otherwise vote, please. Motion passes. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 3, items for individual consideration. A, receive the MAPS 4 revenue and expenditure report ending March 31st, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you said, this is the MAPS 4 monthly financial report for the period ending March 31st, 2022. On the revenue side, for total revenue, $9,650,135, fiscal year of $100,380,690, and total of $226,299,063. Then on the expenditure side, for the month, $80,309,805, and that represents, the bulk of that represents the investment funds that we talked about last meeting that didn't show up on the financials, so now they're on the financials. Fiscal year of $91,189,420 and total of $92,219,420. I'd like to point out that we're 2.5% above projections.
That is fantastic. Any questions for Mr. Todd? Okay. If not, I'd take a motion in a second to receive. Please vote. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item B, recommend resolution authorizing the purchase of land and related real estate expenses and fees not to exceed $1,695,000 for project, you see there, MAPS 4 Transit Plan Growth.
So this is a piece of land that is part of the transit plan growth piece within that subcommittee. It was a deal that Embark had already struck with the landowner. It's land that is immediately adjacent to the Embark headquarters on South May. They need it for expansion. They need it for whenever we put in the 2 new BRT lines and the new buses that'll be in that. They need it for storage and maintenance of those and just overall expansion of the project. So this was specifically outlined in the resolution for MAPS 4. So this is the authorization to go ahead and purchase that land.
Okay. Any questions? Discussion? Okay. If not, I'd just take a motion in a second. Please vote. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item C, recommend receiving consultant review committee report, project M4 TTG20 MAPS 4 Transit Growth, planned growth, and authorize negotiation of an engineering services contract with Kimley Horn and Associates.
So this went through the usual consultant selection process that I think all of you are familiar with now. And Kimley Horn was picked as the designated consultant for this project. This project will be predominantly for the BRT pieces of the transit projects.
Okay,
And everything today, I could keep saying it, but everything today comes with the approval from the respective subcommittees.
any questions? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion in a second. Please vote. Motion passes, thank you. So item D, recommend approval of architectural services contract with C.H. Guernsey and Company for project MAPS 4 Beautification Master Plan, $324,280 in the following wards.
Again, this is the consultant selection process. Went through this and interviewed 3 different firms. C.H. Guernsey was recommended, and now this is the contract that's been negotiated with them. This is part of the beautification piece. If you remember, the beautification was an allotment of money and some projects that were outlined in there. This will help make sense of that. You know, it will start appropriating budgets, putting together schedules, and further defining what each of the beautification projects are. So we recommend it.
Okay, any questions, comments? Take a motion in a second. Please vote. Motion passes, thank you. Item E, recommend joint resolution with the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal Authority transferring $5 million for the MAPS 4 Beautification Phase 1 for land acquisition and remediation of the northeast corner of the intersection of Northeast 23rd Street and Martin Luther King.
Continuing on with the beautification piece of MAPS 4, this is a piece of land that was specifically mentioned in the documents. It is a vacant piece of land now. The grocery store was demoed in that area. So acquiring land in this way is not really what we do. We do right away for sidewalks, and we can do pieces, but this is more of an urban renewal expertise project. So what we're doing is engaging urban renewal to acquire this piece of land.
Okay. But then will the work be done through the MAPS office?
No, the work will all be done through urban renewal. One thing that we did talk about at the subcommittee is any monies that aren't spent on this will come back to us. So that is in the agreement.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, not, I'll take a motion in a second. Please vote. Motion passes, thank you. Moving on to item F, recommend receiving consultant review committee report, MAPS 4 Neighborhood and Community Parks Master Plan Development in Phase 1A, and MAPS 4 Neighborhood and Community Parks Phase 1B, and authorizing negotiation of an engineering services contract with Kimley Horn and Associates.
So this is probably the biggest and most complicated piece of the program, and that is all the parks, all the neighborhood parks that'll be looked at. And this is engaging Kimley Horn to do the master plan, so we can, again, like I described with the beautification piece, the parks also, we've got to put budgets together. We've got to have a lot of public meetings to talk about the parks, what the neighbors envision, the needs of the parks. There's just a whole lot of engagement on this. So this is kind of the thing that we've been waiting for everybody that's really interested in the parks, is developing this master plan so that we'll know where we're going with our budgets and with the projects.
Okay, questions? Yeah, I know that the community engagement piece on the parks is going to be robust.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Or needs to be robust, and I'm sure will be.
It will be. That was part of the interview questions. you know, there's going to be social media engagement, there's going to be actual neighborhood meeting engagement, all kinds of things.
Great, thank you. If no further questions, motion and a second. Please vote. Okay. Moving on to item G, recommend approval of architecture services contract with Kimley Horn and Associates, Maps for Neighborhood Connectivity Master Plan in Phase 1, $575,000.
The theme of the day is master plan.
We got to have a plan.
We do, and the projects that we're looking at right now need these master plans so that we can make sense of all the pieces. So this continues on with the Innovation District and the connectivity within that area. And again, there will be a lot of community engagement, interaction with professionals and citizens. And we're very confident that Kimley Horn is the one to do this.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item H, recommend resolution extending time to award contract for Maps for Downtown Arena Phase 1B seating replacement. Awarding contract to Irwin Seating Company, base bid plus alternates, a value of $3,100,051.18, and approving contract and bonds.
So I believe this is our first construction contract that we're actually putting out. Very happy to see that we're actually building something. There's a long lead time on these seats, so don't expect to see seats next week in the arena if you go there. But this is for replacing the seats in the arena. It's both bowls. It's the upper bowl and then the lower bowl, except for the retracting seats. Those will come at a later time. And then there are some areas in the corners that are going to be reconfigured with some of the work that we plan on doing, and those were left out also. But this is the majority, the vast majority of the seats within the arena. There were 3 bids, as you saw, and we're recommending that Irwin be the contractor on this. There were many alternates. These alternates, I can go through each of them if you want, but a lot of them were to deduct seats out of certain sections where we're anticipating removing those seats for standing room access and then for access into additional spaces that will come in later phases. So we didn't want to put new chairs in there and just pull them right back out. So this is in anticipation of that.
So would it be an accurate assumption that all of the exclusions fit along with the presentation that we saw, I think, last month or the month before?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, not, I'd take a motion in a second.
Teresa, if I might,
Absolutely.
before we vote, just a little bit of elaboration of the long discussion yesterday at the venues subcommittee about this, and some explanation from the manager of the Paycom Center. A lot of time and effort's gone into the selection of seats and looked at a lot of different options that were available within the budget that we have, and so it's not just a go to Costco and pick out a seat to put in the arena. It's a long process to come up with that, and so I think the committee was very well satisfied that the selection was thoughtful and that they're doing the right thing for the dollars we're putting into it. I would make note, I don't know if anyone noticed on the resolution, it had the 3 bids and the amounts that were bid, and then some very strange negative numbers for the alternates, and we questioned that yesterday as to why that was the case. And it turns out that 2 of the bidders had no offer. They had a 0 offer on those alternates. They couldn't satisfy it. And so that was part of the selection process to go with Irwin Seating, because they could take care of everything that we wanted to do. if later on we chose to do some of the alternates, as you can see from the number, it's pretty pricey. And
Right.
part of why we didn't do it, but at least they would be capable of coming in and satisfying that with the same supplier that we're going for with the seats. So that's the reason it's a bit of a strange look to that chart
Yeah.
on the back as to why those numbers appear there. And there was a complete explanation of that yesterday in the committee. That's why we're very satisfied with the Irwin Seating Company.
Great, thank you for that additional comment. Any questions? Any further discussion? Thank you, Bob. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, motion passes. Now, moving on to item I, recommend authorizing negotiation of an operator agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Oklahoma County for the MAPS 4 Youth Center operating partner.
So most of you are probably familiar now by the process that we do for these operators. We advertise it and we get proposals back from them, and we haven't had the need to shortlist in this process because we've only been receiving 2 and 3 and sometimes just 1, and we do interviews with those, and that's what we did. We interviewed Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA. Ultimately, the panel that was tasked with doing these interviews has picked the Boys and Girls Clubs of Oklahoma County to operate the youth centers. I was part of that interview, and I think you'll be very happy with what they're going to provide.
Okay, other comments?
I'm interested in knowing the timeline of picking the locations for these youth centers.
It's still a ways off. We'll get the operator on. We're in the process of hiring an architect. So we want the architect involved in that so we can look at specific things like utilities and drainage and grading and things like that. The timeline will probably be, I'd say 6 months. We'll start looking at sites.
Thank you.
That's just a rough guess.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Hallie?
Does that come here, or does it go through subcommittee first, locations?
Both. It'll go through the subcommittee first. We'll talk about it there, and then we'll bring it here also.
Other questions, comments? Okay. If not, I would take a motion and a second on the recommended negotiation. Please vote. Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Great. All righty, now moving on to item J. Recommend authorizing negotiation of an operator agreement with Metro Technology Centers for the MAPS 4 Henrietta B. Foster Center operating partner.
Very similar to the process that I just described. In this case, there were 2 that proposed for the Henrietta B. Foster Center as operating partner. Ultimately, the review committee, through interview process, has chosen Metro Technology Centers, or they recommend them, so that we can start negotiating contract. I think you'll be very happy with what they provide also. The Urban League was the other group that we interviewed with that. But I think you'll be very happy with what Metro Tech is going to bring to the table.
And I would just add, I served on that selection committee, and so it's not just Metro Tech, it's a consortium of groups coming together, and as David mentioned, to feel like the consortium that they pull together will really provide a nice, it's both wide and deep as far as the plan of services and outreach to the organizations, the businesses that we want to try to support through the revised programming at Henrietta B. Foster. So, any questions? Other discussion? Okay. Not, I take a motion in a second. Please vote. Okay. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4. Any discussion items for us today?
We don't have anything further, Madam Chair.
Okay. Item 5, comments by board, staff, or citizens. Do we have any citizens signed up to speak today? No? Any comments by staff?
I'd like to say that it seems like I'm just bringing you a bunch of paperwork here recently, but it's getting ready to get real busy. We are real busy behind the scenes doing these interviews, trying to get these partners on, trying to get architects hired. I think within a couple of months, this body will start seeing some of the things like Ms. Munoz talked about, site selections, and you'll see presentations on the offerings of the operators. So please don't get frustrated with me yet.
No.
There's just a whole lot to do at the front end.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're very pleased that you are doing it and not asking us to do it for you. So I don't think anybody's going to complain. Any comments by board?
Yeah, so David, so I'm going to the Who concert next week. Am I going to have a seat?
You'll have a seat, but not a new one. You know, that is worth discussing. I should have mentioned that. We're not going to close down. We don't anticipate closing down the arena for a period or causing any disruption. That was one of the things that we wanted them to be able to do, is work with the current schedules. And there will be a time when they'll be putting seats in during basketball season. So if you go to a basketball game, you might look over and the next section is new seats and you're sitting in an old seat, but then the next game you're in a new seat. It'll be done in pieces between events. It'll take a while, but no seat next week.
You'll just have to go back to another concert.
That's scheduled as well.
Good, okay. Any other comments by board? Just wanted to say thank you all for being here today, weathering the heavy downpours, and appreciate all of your time and attention. So with nothing else, item 6, we will adjourn.
So David, I was just